What's up, brother? How are you, man? You good? All right, welcome back to the next episode of Wide Open, the podcast. I'm your host, Tony Gonzalez, and I have the pleasure of sitting down with somebody that I've known for a while now. I think back to 2007 or something like that. I don't know who knows the exact date. But entrepreneur, do you call yourself a motivational speaker or just
everybody does?
Speaker?
I prefer not to say that, but I feel like I'm motivated, but it's got a negative connotation in my own mind. But when people say it as a compliment, I'm grateful.
Yeah, well, it is great. I'm talking about Gary Vaynerchuk, and the reason I say that motivational speaker because I see you all over the internet. I'm sure anybody who's out there, they've seen you on some type of something's going to pop up with you eventually.
That's the plan.
Because you're so much on there. But yeah, I read your book, Crushing It. That was your first book. I didn't...
Crush It was my first one.
Crush It.
The green one for the Jets. We'll get into that later.
Yeah, I'm sure we will.
Crushing It is the new one. It's the yellow one. So I don't know which one you read, but Crush It was the first one. Crushing It was the last one.
It was the one where you left your email in there and you said, okay, anybody wants to contact me, contact me. And I contacted you off of that. That's how I got in touch with you.
I recall, and I'm like, this can't be the actual. And then when I realized how much you were into wine, and it's been really fun to I have enormous admiration for you, and I'm super thrilled to be on the show.
Well, thank you. I know that you're a very busy person with your 24/7 cameras following you and all that shit.
That is true.
Which is good. And I can't wait to talk about that too, because I'm fascinated by that type of stuff. But as we begin, a lot of words to describe you: social media mogul, entrepreneur, internet personality, all this stuff. How would you describe yourself?
I think I'm an entrepreneur. I really do, only because it's always been there. Lemonade stands, sports cards, the wine business. I spend 80% or more of my energy on meetings, operating businesses. So to the thing you referenced earlier, and we'll get into later, my ability to create content and the strategy I put in place and the incredible team that I put around me definitely makes it feel like there's a lot more going on. And I do love to speak, but 80% of them are wildly strategic to be top of the funnel for the businesses I run. And so I just think of myself as an entrepreneur who, no question, has figured out the current landscape of communication and has played within that arena.
Are you a curious person? I mean, do you read a lot of books?
No, I don't read a lot of books at all, actually. I've probably almost written as many as I've, read. On the flip side, I actually think I'm wildly curious in this sense. I genuinely believe that there are very few people on earth that read as many comments from people around all things. I said this recently. I read probably 100 comments about Meg the Stallion before I knew what she looked like, or listened to a song, because I'm always watching what's happening. What are people talking about? I read all the comment. Usually it starts like this. I read thousands of comments a week of the content that I put out. It's how I strategize. It's strategy and research. Inevitably, somebody will make a reference like, I'll give you the Meg the Stallion one. It's a quote from one of her songs that they're saying about what I just did in a video. Like, this is like a year and a half ago, and I'm like, who's that? Then I don't go to Google. I'll go into Twitter, type in that name, and then I'll read. Then I'll go to her Instagram account. Then I'll read the comments on her page. Then I'll go to Spotify. I'll listen to her project. And so that's what I do with anything. Like, almost everything I know goes through the path that I just described. Real people talking about real things. That brings me awareness, not the news, not a book. Then I go through my own research path. It allows me to have my own take on it versus somebody forming my take, which is what leads me to have a lot of unique perspectives.
I love it. And we're gonna get way more into that, but I want to go back to your childhood. I know that you were a purebred entrepreneur, and a lot of people already know the story, so I don't even want to talk about that because people can go hear about that shit. But as far as a kid, what type of kid were you? I mean, did you ever get in any fights?
Yes. I fought Oded Weinstock 3 times from 2nd to 6th grade.
Oded Weinstock. That sounds like a tough name.
This kid came from Israel, guns a-blazing, trying to become the alpha, and I wasn't interested in that. And we really threw down in Edison, New Jersey. And
you're a public school kid?
I went to Martin Luther. Not only am I a public school kid, I went to Martin Luther King Elementary School in Edison, which was amazing. Asian, Indian, African-American, white, incredible. I have a 2nd grade picture that I recently found. Somebody posted on on Facebook and tagged me. I was so pumped. I can't believe how fortunate I was. So many subcultures. Plus, it's the early and mid 80s. So now you have a hip hop infusion. You have the 80s, which was a very Americana era of growth. You have all these dynamics. I was an immigrant, and I was a scrapper. I was highly competitive and wildly emotional, which meant I cried a lot. Every time, basically from 1982 to 1988, if I lost in anything, I cried. Little League, backyard football, pool against my cousin Bobby. I stayed crying in the 80s because I just couldn't handle defeat. I was so desperate to win.
Same way. I was the same way. What do you think that, I'm seriously, I'm with you right now. I cried a lot and I was really, really competitive and I hated to lose.
You know what's funny? I'm going to say something. I want everybody to hear this. Obviously, you went on to become an all-time great athlete, and I have an entrepreneurial career that I think a lot of people understand has some of those nuances, but I'm so thrilled we're talking about this. I want to stay on this. I apologize. I think we have a real relationship and a long one. I don't have that many, and we run into each other and we hit up each other. I think the reason you're great both at football, but what you now do for a living is because I think that you have competitive and empathetic traits. And I think that when you have a lot of empathetic traits, it manifests in very sensitive feelings in your youth. That I find a lot of people that I see later in life know how to navigate a crowd, like understand what's going on, have that awareness, can feel. And in the beginning, they feel too much and they don't know how to handle it. And it manifests in tears.
But I used to try to hide it a lot too. I was afraid to put it out there. Did you have that when you were a kid?
I hid it as much as I could, right? Like when we lost to this is details. When we lost to John Longo's Cougars in 4th grade, 3-2 in the championship game, there was no hiding it. The game ends, we ground out in the final inning, we lose the championship game. I cry like a fucking baby on impact. Literally, as the kid on my team got thrown out at first, like the ball hits the glove, I'm on the bench, obviously, we're at bat, game's over. I cry immediately at scale. Like uncontrollable. Like if you watch the Little League World Series and you see those little kids cry, I'm like, I get it. Like, and other things, yes, like something would happen, outside and I would lose. I try to run home and cry in my room. If something happened in my house. My mom is a gangster Russian lady. She's the sweetest. She'd be compassionate for me, but if I kept crying for more than 5 minutes, she would convert into, I'm gonna give you something to actually cry about. So I knew that I only had so much leeway in crying around her too. So yes, I tried to hide it.
Were you insecure ever? I mean, I felt like that was part of my upbringing too, was the insecurity and wanting.
Everybody has levels of insecurity.
It's kind of a level. What about competitiveness and insecurity? Do you think there's a fine line between those two things?
Yes, I do.
And how do you think that's helped you?
I think it's helped me the most. I think if you are lucky enough to have self-esteem slightly higher than insecurity, and you layer competitiveness above it, you now have the ingredients for success. I think if insecurity is greater than self-esteem, you're fucking dead.
Yeah.
So for me, insecurity, my mom and the results of me doing well at business, I was a really good athlete to about 3rd or 4th grade because I have great hand-eye coordination, so that was enough before speed and athleticism took over and size. So I had some nice wins along the board up until 3rd or 4th grade. And then, the business stuff, I was making money and I was liked by kids. I have a good personality, so there was a lot of good things. I would say really the only insecurity that kind of maintained for a while was I was absolutely insecure with girls. I was scared of rejection. There was absolutely girls through grammar school, junior high and high school that I liked, and I didn't have the confidence to go in for that move because I feared the rejection, where I have none of that now in the macro, but never had it with business. I was never scared to sell. I was an 11-year-old trying to sell to a 40-year-old adult. That didn't scare me. So that's where I had it the most. Other than that, pretty much nowhere.
So when I was young, I don't know if you know my background story, but I had this bully that used to come pick on me back in, everybody knows about this story. But
have we put out this bully's name?
No, I haven't put the name out.
I want to.
I thank him. It's actually the best thing to ever happen to me. I've talked about it in my Hall of Fame speech.
I want to find him. I'm just I think we should do a documentary on this person. I'm just curious what they're up to.
Well, they did the football life on me, and they were asking. Of course, I talked about the bully because it was a big time in my life, and they were like, oh, "What's his name? What's it?" I'm like, I don't know.
I get it.
But anyways,
what about his or her initials? Because her would be awesome.
No, it wasn't her.
Okay.
I've been beat up by a girl though too.
I believe
I got
it.
beat up a lot as a kid. Believe it or not,
I believe it the most.
Yeah.
I mean, there's first of all, when did you have your growth spurts?
I was always a big kid too.
Interesting.
Mine was insecurity and a little bit of not fear. Yeah, mostly fear. I was afraid of a lot of things.
Were you also kind?
But I was also very outgoing.
Were you
too,
kind?
And stuff. Yeah, I was extremely kind. I was sensitive, just like we talked about.
I think a lot of people who have size and who like forget about the insecurity for a minute. I also noticed that a lot of people who struggle with childhood are just actually kind and didn't know when the negativity came to them. They were the bigger person. Instead of just punching the person back in the face or making fun of them too, their kindness took over. Their compassion and sympathy took over. And so they were not willing, it took a lot for them to get fully into the corner.
Yeah.
Oded Weinstock called my mom a bitch. That was a line that I just had to honor. So I had to fight. Also, I beat him bad in second and fourth grade. Second grade, I crushed him by running around, tripping him finally, jumping on, he landed face first. I jumped on his back and pounded his back with my fist and then tried to put him in the camel clutch because I loved wrestling. That didn't work, but it made him cry by then.
Me and you are the same age. You're 43, right?
Yeah. The
so
camel clutch I tried to
Yeah.
literally put him in the camel clutch. But in sixth grade, which this story I hate to tell, we got into a little bit of a beef before class started, into an argument. At this point, we've had like 3 or 4 years of truths kind of running in different circles. And I kind of turned around and he pushed me into the locker, and the combination thing on the locker drilled me in my ribs. And then he put me in a headlock, and then teachers, I've never fully told this story. So he puts me in a headlock and I go to the ground, and then teachers break it up. And now for the next 3 or 4 periods in school, Oded beat up Gary. And I'm fucking, first of all, true, because that's how it played out. I'm like, fuck, this is it. This is the most important moment of my life. Am I willing to not do anything about this and let this be the narrative? Or do I have to go to lunch later and fucking challenge him on Marco's Hill at the ice cream truck where the fights went down? I hope somebody from Edison 1986 is listening to this right now because they're freaking out. They're like, holy shit, this actually happened. So I fucking have to go to, we're at lunch and it's now rampant. I lose, everyone's talking about it. And I go up to him like, Oded, like literally out of like a fucking 80s like movie, like, okay, Marco's Hill, ice cream truck after school. And now the fucking hype builds. The hype builds all afternoon. And here we are, we're at the hill and we have to fight. Like literally circle, we're in it, and we start. And I'm in early trouble. Like he's already now bigger and taller, and he's got me in trouble, and he's now on top of me, and I'm in real dire straits. And I will never forget this moment. I'm like, this is like, when I tell you, the only thing I can compare this to is if I have a moment later in my life where it's like on the verge of dying, just willing yourself to not die. I was there and saying, this is it. I cannot lose this. And I kind of started rocking back and forth. I luckily built enough momentum. As he's coming off of me, I try to throw a punch on the ground while he's on the ground, but I fall short because he's too far away. But somehow, through the momentum, I end up kicking him directly in the face. And his whole fucking face explodes. Mouth, nose, blood. And he just starts crying and runs away. And I'm fucking victorious. Everyone's cheering. The next day in school is the greatest day of my life. And so I just feel like I wanted to tell that story.
Yeah, well, it's a good story.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have any opposite of that story? I mean, any
basically
horrible time that you went through as a child, like that was my rock bottom for me. That changed my life in that second. But it sounds like it was there for you, but you seized the moment. And you said, see, mine, I never even ended up fighting the guy. It never even happened. And I went months and months and months of my 8th grade year not fighting this guy. How are you able at that age to go through it right then and there?
I was forced into it. I will say that we're similar. I have avoided confrontation my whole life.
Yeah.
My greatest weakness has been candor or bringing something to the forefront that's negative, which has made me absolutely through the years take a step back, be the bigger person, and or avoid situations that could lead to me having, but I also never thought they were that serious. All the kids that picked on me through the years, all the bad grades, all my teachers and my friends' parents saying I'm a loser, all the things that I went through, I just didn't believe. I believed that I was gonna win.
How the hell did you do that though? I mean,
I think
as,
my
as
mom,
a child,
I
is
think
it your
my
mother,
mom,
your
100%.
father, your mother saying,
my
hey,
mother,
you look,
my
you're
father,
great.
yes, but not delusional. My mom instilled heavy self-esteem, but didn't cross the line of delusion. So if I went 0 for 4 in a baseball game, actually remember having a bad game once. I don't remember this, but I know if I was to say, well, I went 0 for 4 because the coach should have batted me third or because the sun was in my eyes. And it's fun to have AJ here because he's not around usually when I do content. We just lived in a house of no excuses. Like excuses were just fucking unacceptable. Like it wasn't even in our framework. Like we don't even know, we were in a cocoon too. We were a very insular family. Like AJ was a little bit more social and like, because he's 11 years younger and he played a little bit of different framework, but like we don't have excuses. Nobody talks about complaining.
They just weren't entertained.
Yeah, that's AJ says it right. They weren't entertained. The second you even tried to even think about going somewhere, it was fucking combated, right?
And so,
yeah, dad would be like, go fuck yourself. And mom would like be like, you're sweet, get out of here.
I mean, what an upbringing because, you know, I guess I really didn't have that. And that's why, so I had to navigate that alone. And so what about people out there that are going through that alone? What do you say to people like that? Because that's not just with kids, that's also with
adults, with everybody.
I mean, with adults, yeah.
I think it's about perspective. I think people have to practice thinking about things the way they practice routes or they practice working out or reading or I actually think mental practice is something we don't talk about. For example, Tony, I have spent the far majority of my adult life and even my teenage years imagining extreme tragedy to my family on a pretty much daily basis. I've probably since, let me go here now. I know this is.
What the, you're imagining this.
Wake up
Is this your greatest fear?
100%. It also is the thing that makes me so grateful. And I think gratitude is incredibly the engine of happiness. And so I think about my children dying. I like in real ways, like maybe today, like when they go on a school trip, I'm being serious. I'm like, this is going to be the day the bus goes off and not like, I mean, we're talking now and there's people in the room and there are a lot of people listening, not like ha ha ha, or like doing it because I wanted to say it on the podcast, like literally just sitting in the shower or on a plane or in the car and literally just internalizing for 2 to 3 minutes, deep tragedy, which then puts bullying, loss of money, like puts things in perspective. And so I think that people struggle with time. I think people are very bad in understanding time. I think people are impatient, and especially in their 20s. And I think people hit their 30th birthday, and if they're not married or if they don't make enough money, they freak their shit, and they're like, what the fuck? Because society norms have pushed on them. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're gonna live fucking 2 more full lives of 30. You're a fucking kid. You know, like, what do you, like, I think people are bad with time. I think they are impatient. They value other people's opinions for validation. And I think people need to get more inside themselves. And that's why when I see meditation, mindfulness, mental health issues, the fact that in the same way 30 years ago, we started talking about bodies, you know, like eating well. I mean, talk about your career. Like tight ends didn't work out in the off season in the 70s. You know, Todd Christensen of the Raiders was not having the off season regimen that you have, which is why you could perform at your age. Same with mental health. I think we're starting to talk about people having, this is what I'm passionate about. Practice perspective. Practice perspective.
Is that what you do when you're thinking about your children?
Yes.
Maybe not living through the day? And you're so it's a positive thing. It's not like it's wearing on your heart.
No, it is not wearing on my heart.
It's like live your last days like you're dying, okay? Live this day like you will not be here tomorrow and you will be the best version of yourself.
What's funny is when I think about this is my last day, practically it feels like, well, I'm not gonna know anyway. That feels okay. But, okay. Like right now, right in this room, you'll all freak the fuck out, but I'll be like, whatever, didn't know. Something happening to AJ or well, that's fucking devastating. Because I will know. So I actually don't think it's my last day. I think it's the last day of the 8 people that operate my heart and soul. And when I do that, all of a sudden, a lawsuit, a a bad business day, a lost client, a comment saying that I'm a snake oil salesman because a lot of people judge me in the way I say things instead of what I'm actually saying. The economy collapsing, me over leveraging, a bad deal, somebody screwing me, somebody I have helped for a long time saying bad things behind my back because they're in a bad place. All of a sudden, everything becomes so manageable because I say to myself, yeah, or that other thing could happen. And it's just deep perspective.
Has anybody ever close to you died? Passed on? I hate saying the word died.
That's right.
Pass on.
Not really. My grandmother recently passed away, and the reality is my relationship with her was unique because my grandmother had a very tough childhood and grew up in the Soviet Union and manifested in a lot of behavior that I don't admire. So there was a level of being able to be separated from that. Plus she was really, really sick the last 6 or 7 years in kind of an Alzheimer's state. So it was amortized out. And even the 3 years before that, I started really getting passionate about positivity and doing the right things. And to be frank, I think some of the struggles I had with my father in the family business, it was easier for me to blame my grandmother than my father because I love my dad so much that, I think in some ways I might have demonized her. And so that's the closest person. Mm-hmm. The other thing that happened to me is both my parents lost a parent in their youth. My mom lost her mom at 5 and my dad lost his dad at 15. So that weighed heavy. I always feared losing my parents as a kid. That was a big story in my head. So no, and I think the answer is, my uncle, Misha, who took me to those baseball games, he was almost my father figure because my dad worked all the time. I was close to him, but the last 2 years, ironically, before he passed, he kind of was going through his own stuff and kind of distanced himself from the family. And so, the reality is, to answer your question, not the kind that just tears me down to where I can't breathe. Mm-hmm. Not a sibling, a parent, a child, a spouse, or not the core 10 to 12 people in my life.
Mm-hmm. And, I had a real good friend of mine I played ball with. And my dad has passed away. This guy, Nate Hobgood-Chittick, sweetheart of a man, died in front of his children. That's tough. That is tough. But I will say this, and anybody out there who's listening, I know for the people that have gone through those type of circumstances, there's something cleansing about it too, because it wakes you up to what life is. I mean, that's why we're here. We're all inevitably, we're all going to pass away.
I call it the almost pulled over rule. Mm-hmm. The almost pulled over rule is the most fascinating thing about human behavior. All of us are driving. The lights go on. You get scared as fuck. You fucking grab both. And then the cop drives past you and it's not you. And you exhale and have this euphoria moment. You put both hands on your wheel. You slow down by 15. And then 22 minutes later, you're right back to doing the same shit. Somebody passes and everyone resets. I'm going to kiss my children more. We're going to take more vacations. We're going to do this. And 3 weeks later, you're back to norms. Hence why I think practicing perspective daily is why it's worked for me, because I'm actually trying to feel those feelings, those deep pains on a daily basis, which has made everything feel incredibly easy.
Yeah. But part of that too, it's a rite of passage. It's kind of like, I have an 18-year-old son and he hasn't had a serious girlfriend yet, but I know eventually that he's going to go through heart pain.
Yes.
He's going to get broken up with. He's going to get his heart broken.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, okay, I'm kind of, let that happen a little bit. And for people out there who you haven't done it yet, but eventually it's going to happen or you're going to pass away and then something's going to happen with you. It's kind of like a rite of passage.
I think that's right.
I think it's
I
something,
think that's right.
It'll give you so much more perspective. Somebody who knows a lot about life and living.
I got it.
How much more perspective
I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that's right. One of the reasons I don't talk a lot about death or that is because I only talk about shit I've lived.
Yeah.
I don't have any leg to stand on to talk about that. And so, that's where I'm at.
Well, let's talk about you, obviously, I saw when you came in, you have your 24/7 camera crew and you got all that
in the
stuff.
building. She's amazing.
So obviously you've built this big old company and you're continuing to keep expanding.
Yes.
And that means you're a leader. You're kind of like a head coach.
100%.
I know you probably talked about it real quickly. What would you describe yourself? Just give me 3 words to describe yourself as a leader.
I think I'm empathetic. I think I'm compassionate. And I think I'm loaded with conviction. Mm-hmm. I call Vaynerchuk the honey empire. So I lead with honey over vinegar, but I'm trying to build a fucking empire. Mm. And so at my worst, I create entitlement. And we went through a period of Vayner of that 4 years ago. At at my best, I've got the balance of Honey and Empire down, and we're compassionate. We're the best. I had 2 employees 2 days ago lose a parent. And I was on the phone with both of them, and just the sheer gratitude of the kind of business we're building that gives people the flexibility of dealing with those kind of situations. And others I adore so much going through it over periods of time. Just having that ability, it makes me feel good, because you can win with honey over vinegar. And you know this, football is my favorite passion. And so there are the head coaches that are more, kind of hardcore, and there's more the player coaches. Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick are different.
Which one are you?
I'm more Pete Carroll, but
so you're more the fun guy. You're more like, okay, let's dance, let's laugh.
But I would win Super Bowls. I don't know what to say, because I think some player coaches get run over.
Yeah.
I know the Jets very well. I know a lot about a lot over the last 2 decades deeply, and now I know more than half the team personally as players and stuff of that nature. I know the difference. I know the difference of a player's coach that doesn't bench the player he needs to at that moment, that I'm willing to do those things. And I think Pete learned that. Pete struggled as the Jets head coach. He lost the team because he couldn't add that extra variable. And I don't know what he did in New England, but it wasn't successful. And look, I'm a funny guy when it comes to coaches. I'm a little bit more skewed to Phil Jackson had fucking Kobe and fucking Jordan and Shaq. Like I skew more towards players than most people on coaches. Yeah. But there are absolutely coaches that I've gotten recently close with Sean McVay. After one long dinner, the amount of confusion that if I had any of why he's successful this quickly was evaporated.
Yeah.
I believe that this is an emotional intelligence warfare. And I think the people that actually understand human behavior win. And my demeanor, my natural DNA is happy-go-lucky, positive, optimism. And so that's why I'm more that.
Yeah.
But at its core, just like Belichick, I mean, I hate him with all my soul, but it is absolute knowledge that he's not the guy that he plays on camera behind the scenes. And that's, I think Carroll and Belichick are far more similar. Their outwardness is very, very different. But when you melt them down, there's a lot more similarities than people would realize.
So interesting thing about Pete Carroll. People don't know this. His first 3 years as a coach in the Seattle Seahawks, he had the most turnover out of any team in the NFL. Man, if you can't cut it, if you don't buy into what we're doing,
finish
you're
your
out
thought.
of here.
I'm jumping in. I looked and AJ left. I'm so fucking, I can't believe you just brought that up. So first of all, actually, I won't waste time on this. Brandon Warnicki is my best friend. I met him the first day of high school. We did baseball card shows together. He runs my family wine business, wine library, with my dad now. I talk to him all the time. A couple years ago, I didn't like what we were doing because I was very removed from the business and I just didn't like it. And I'm just having this conversation with Brandon. And I go, Brandon, you need to become the Seattle Seahawks. And he's a Cubs fan. He doesn't follow football. He's like, what does that mean? I go, we need to cut the bottom 3 players constantly. And we need to have the best practice squad until we find diamonds in the rough. AKA, when you're running a liquor store, you're paying people minimum wage or $10 an hour. You're gonna get a lot of what you pay for, and then you're gonna get kids that are coming up in the struggle, like me and him and others, who for 2 to 3 years are gonna crush for you for $10 an hour. And Sanan's hero was on my team, a kid I met at Babson who said, I want to be on your team. And I just didn't have the payroll here. And I said, and I kind of believed in him. And it's fun to look in his eyes and say this. I said, because he's one of the only people that actually ate the level of dirt that I asked, because most people balk because they're full of shit. I said, if you want to do this, you can work at my dad's liquor store for a year, reverse commute from fucking New York to New Jersey, walk from the train station and work for nothing, some dollars on the hour to work in a liquor store. And if you have that humility and talent, so it's fun to be telling the story with him here because he knows that his fellow workers there look different than the fellow workers he has now at Vayner. But there were diamonds in the rough there. There were absolutely people. Ian Doran, a kid I hired for $10 an hour, now runs one of the biggest wine programs in the world. And for 3 years, we had him for 10, 11, $12 an hour. And that's what the Seahawks did. Cut the bottom, cut the bottom. Find these diamonds, UDFAs. I mean, I'm living it now in the sports world. AJ just left. We talked before we started this. Vayner Sports, the new business my brother and I started 3 years ago. We're in the NFL representation business. Kyle Allen, the current starting quarterback of Carolina, why Cam gets healthy, was having a very nice 2 games and had a great game last year, was a UDFA, but I knew who he was.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Yeah, that's that. So somebody you said who you don't like confrontation.
Yes.
Being a leader, you're going to have confrontation.
100%.
So how do you deal with being honest with the people that you work with? And then I want to get to your family too after that.
You got it. I'm the best version of this is the number one weakness of my 25-year professional career, and I'm the best version of it right this second. But it has absolutely been the thing I've had to work the hardest on. And it's funny, Joanna's sitting here in the backdrop, shaking her head, making smiles. She's been with us more than 7 years. So she's watched the evolution. She knows like me going through my progressions. Just like earlier, I said kindness and optimism. She shook her head. She also knows that I've had to adjust as a leader where I could say one thing and then 6 months later it would be a little bit different. And I was like, I was hoping that I'm so optimistic. I'm always hoping the other person's going to figure it out or back to coaching, I'm going to put them in a position to succeed. I always, as a leader, it was less that I wanted to give you radical candor and say, hey, you're not cutting it or you stink or you need, and it was more like, oh, I need to put these players in positions to succeed. That's on me. And that's why I created entitlement. Because I'm like, it's on me, it's on me, it's on me. And over the last 2 or 3 years, and I've done a much better job. And even when we started it, back to, because he was here, AJ naturally was better at it. And when I was watching my 22, 23-year-old brother show his natural talents in our business of being better at it, that inspired me. I'm like, wait, I want to be better at it too. And I was self-aware. I looked at the things that weren't working, or you know how frustrating it is to be amazing to somebody for 5 years, and then when they don't get it, and you're not doing a good job being candorous, that the last couple weeks make them hate you instead of love you because you've been carrying them for 2 years kindly. And so I was also dealing with my own pain of like, wow, people that I did a mitzvah for, that I fucking, they should be kissing my cheek, are actually mad at me because I didn't give them enough candor.
Fire people?
Yeah, I fire people, but it's not my favorite. I fire people, I fire
that,
people,
but I mean,
but it was always hard for me. It continues to be hard for me, but I fire people. I'm incredibly easy and capable to be combative with my clients and my vendors. It's just my employees. My employees have absolutely manifested in children form, and that the things I push against parenting are the things that I did poorly as a leader for the majority of my career and still struggle with, which is why I know they're bad. Entitlement's bad.
It is.
I'm aware. I mean, I know what's running through your head about your 18-year-old son. Just by the if you did everything right, just by the macro of the life you lived, it's what I'm going through too. Like, they're living a different life. Like, it's so different that we have to overthink what we think we're doing that's awesome is actually creating vulnerabilities. Everything in balance.
So how do you deal with that empathy or compassion? I mean, kind of I don't know, what's the difference between empathy and compassion for you?
I'm bad at semantics.
So
they feel the same to me.
How do you seem like obviously you're very candid. I mean, that's what you're known for. You seem like you're going to tell exactly what's in your heart. You're going to let it roll.
Talk about a bunch of shit here already.
So how do you do that though? I mean, how do you?
I'm very.
Is it brutally honest? You know the term brutally honest.
I'm great to be brutally honest with myself. I am nurturing, and I over nurtured employees to a place that didn't put them in the best position to succeed, as difficult as that is to swallow. And I believe over the next 25 years that I'm going to be a dramatically better leader. Think about it in sports terms, because it's fun to hang with you. I have a very funny feeling you were better at film study and route running later in your career than in the beginning, but athletes have to retire. Operators don't.
Yeah.
I tell everybody to be patient. Don't worry about your 30th birthday. I'm 43 years old. I'm going to be running companies for another 40 years. The fact that I'm sitting here and I'm at the place where I can see it, I've already adjusted dramatically. I can't even imagine how good, and I mean this, I think I'm going to be remarkable at it over the next 25. I'm getting better and better. And the fact that I'm putting it out is like in itself putting pressure on me to get better at it, right? I'm actually doing it right now.
So you're building the future, right?
Yes.
And you see it, and I love how you're looking ahead. You're saying, okay, this is how it's going to be. It seems like you got everything mapped out.
Tony, I literally can visualize right now holding up the Lombardi Trophy as the owner of the New York Jets, looking into the camera, and literally on global TV at that point saying, I fucking told you.
And you believe that shit. Like it's in your heart right now and you see it. I love that.
In a way that like I am too conscious of like how one would be hearing this on the other side of it, in a way that I don't want to even like, I don't like going deep into it because then I have to almost believe in aliens and witches and every, like, because I believe in it so much, it feels so obvious. And yes, I believe in it.
Well, there's power in that. I mean, that's me when I played football, or that's me now that I had forgot that I used to do in football. Because it was like, it was for sure. Okay, the future's coming, and this is what it's going to be, and this is how it's going to be, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. It's going to happen this way.
I believe that to be true.
But you have to bring that off into your regular life too, which was tough for me. It was tough during that transition, but I did figure it out. And that's why I'm sitting here with you right now. And I love how you think like that. But I want to switch to, because I know you've talked about it a bunch, but I want to about relationships with you. Okay, friendships.
Yes.
Scooter Braun's a friend of ours. And I know you know him, obviously, pretty well. And he's somebody that I can talk to at times who knows me.
Yes.
And he had mentioned to me that he had asked you the question, who knows you?
I remember when he was
how have you expanded on that? Because he said it was kind of a tough question for you.
It was a very tough it's a tough question again. I am the byproduct of Soviet parents. Mm-hmm. And if you are a byproduct of a communist regime, I promise you, if you now become fascinated by this answer and you start living life and you remember it and you meet, somebody from Cuba or the Soviet Union or, there is a part that doesn't let you. I have never, not my wife, not my parents, fully let anybody know me 100.
Not even your wife?
No, not 100.
Uh-huh.
I think it's there's an inherent protective mechanism. And by the way, just for context, there's nothing like crazy. It's not like I'm a Martian, or it's just that I don't, first of all, actually, this is an insight. Here are the pieces. Ready? I don't like complaining. Mm-hmm. I'm actually completely against it. I'm visceral to it. Thus, if you think about it, when you start getting into the 98, 99, 100% of fully who you are, you start going into some deep shit, right? And in that deep shit, there's a lot of, what can manifest as negativity, right? Which I don't like that, right? Yeah. Complaining, well, I don't like that, right? And so, yes, there is no question. The only person that knows me 100 is me. Uh-huh. And in a weird way, as long as I'm trying to achieve 97s, 98s, 99s, I'm comfortable with that. I may, and you know what's really funny? We're talking in the abstract. The reason it was such an interesting question last time, like with Scooter and now this, I'm like sitting here and I'm like, what don't I tell people? And what I don't really tell people is what I'm stressed about right now. Like it's not like some crazy thing like at night I'm Jack the Ripper. It's more like I just don't know how to share. When you're an entrepreneur, listen, everything has been on my fucking back, Tony.
Yeah. But that would be all the more reason, Gary, to actually sit there and actually get. Do you have a true friend? Do you have anybody that you can just tell everything? Who is a true friend of yours? And by the way, friendship too is
Brandon Warnick. Ready? Brandon Warnick.
How many? So it's probably like one or two. People are
yes. No, I'm done. Yeah, AJ is my true friend, but he's my brother.
He's your brother.
And when you start getting into dad, mom, it gets business. We were to get so you get into places like, hey, AJ, I want to talk to you about what I'm frustrated about with you. Like you can do that. There is that, but even that last 1%, that's more of a Brandon talk. Or the way I handle it, it's more of a talk with myself. I'm going to paint an analogy here. I think it's currently popular. It is currently popular to have the fact that you and I, as alphas, having this conversation is remarkably phenomenal. There is no fucking way on earth that if you and I were 20 years older and we were sitting this exact moment in 1999, we are not talking about this. Mm-hmm. That's not what alpha dudes talked about, right?
No.
So this is incredible. I'm thrilled and so happy that we are eliminating stigma from a norm. I mean, yesterday on a podcast, I said that 50% of the parents that are staying at home should be men. And until men make it okay for other men to be stay-at-home dads, we will never achieve it. And so like I'm excited about eliminating stigmas. I also think the following. I think that there are incredible attributes to people practicing self-soothing. And I think it's awesome when I've absolutely loved the times where I've gone to a therapy session and have had a conversation. And then I also love the times when I'm in a shower and I talk to myself as the therapist to my own self and truly work through something. I love self-soothing. I don't like animals so much, meaning I don't hate them, but like I'm not a cat guy or a dog guy or things of that nature. Mm-hmm. There's something about watching cats lick themselves that has always been on my mind. You know, when they like do that thing and I'm like, I'm fascinated by it. And I finally in the last year said, wait a minute, I wonder if I think about self conversations the way I see that. Uh-huh. And I think it is not the popular conversation to talk about that. No, Gary, you need somebody. And I agree with that. Uh-huh. And I have that in Brandon, and I have that if I go to a therapy session. But I enjoy working through heavy issues with myself. Yeah. And I'm able to almost take myself out of it, and we like have this great combo, and I enjoy it. Mm-hmm.
Well, the reason I love it, and I only have like, it's my cousin Dennis, who's still a family member. And then, you know, like I said, Scooter or somebody, if I got something really serious.
You're building.
Yeah, but, you know, I think in this, especially in your world, I would think, because it's got to get so loud for you. The noise, I mean, you're in New York City, you're running all these companies, you're writing books, you're doing speaking engagements. When it gets loud, like so what do you do? Where do you go if you want to clear your mind? Do you meditate?
I do not, however, I love that people do. Everyone has their own process. Tony, when I tell you it's quiet in my brain, it is quiet.
How do you keep it quiet?
I don't know. I think I practice keeping it quiet. I think I keep things simple. I believe it's gratitude, perspective, an incredible relationship with time, knowing that there's a lot more time. It's gratitude.
You don't. So is that what it is? That's what you would say.
It's gratitude. Honestly, Tony, I'm so grateful, bro. And I'm not grateful because I'm Gary Vee or I have money or like, I'm grateful that I'm alive. Yeah. I came from the Soviet Union. Yeah. My parents thought they were going to live to 50 because that was super old for Russian people. Yeah. Like, I'm grateful. My mother is all time. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm just grateful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the number one things you can do. And then you talk about empathy and all that stuff because it's like being in a football game. For me, you know, and people out there, people look at the greats and they say, okay, wow, he has so much poise. At the end of a game, when the game's on the line, he looks like he gets calmer. That's what it is, I think, what 100%. Makes great entrepreneurs. But I'm wondering if there's methods for that, so people can takeaways. What's the takeaway? And I think gratitude is good.
I think it's perspective and gratitude. I think you got to talk to yourself. The hardball thing, right? Who has it better than us? No one. I kind of play the other thing, which is like, do you understand that there are billions? And I know all the producers right now want us to wrap up, and I'm sure you have a hard stop. I know I do. Yeah. But I want to get this off. Do you know let me say this, and I'm positive. If you are listening to this podcast, that means you have the means to listen to this podcast. That means you know of Tony Gonzalez. You have a device that allows you to listen to this podcast. If you are a human on the other side of this information right this second, there are 5 billion people on Earth, minimally, that have it way worse than you. Yeah. I don't think people get it. I don't think people fucking get it, Tony. I don't think people get how, if you've ever bought a coffee that costs more than $4, you are living one of the great lives on Earth. I'm going to say that very slowly for the kids in the back. If you in your life have ever bought a $4 or more coffee, you are living one of the great lives in the world. And I believe that somebody who's just listening last night got upset because they missed out on a party that everybody got invited to, or they didn't get the promotion, or their car has an issue and now they have to go into their savings for $200, or and on and on and on. And even the crazy era that you and I play in, they didn't get the part. Yeah. They did. Their big investment went out of business. So they lost 100. Like, people dwell on dumb shit, Tony.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I believe the takeaway is the following. Wake up every morning and say, thank God I didn't have a brain aneurysm overnight. Thank God nobody called me overnight and said somebody that I love the most died. And thank God, thank God I'm going to fucking Blue Bottle right now and buying some fucking shit that 99% of the people, like if you're wearing Yeezys, you fucking won. If you've been to Coachella, you fucking won. If you fucking bought a $4 Blue Bottle today, you fucking won. You get in that mindset, shit gets fun.
So you said something, you say you thank God, and because I'm really interested in this part of it. What, do you practice any type of religion? Okay, I know you guys.
I'm Jewish.
Are you into it? Like higher
I'm
power?
super not into it because just real quick to educate the kids in the back again, one more time, and to stress out Joanna, communism doesn't allow people to practice religion. So for 3 generations of my family, it was illegal. So it just got lost. So
Do you believe in a higher power?
Yeah.
Something bigger than yourself?
Yeah, I do. And whether that's God, which I kind of default into, I will say this. I believe that karma is the single most practical energy in the world. That being a kind person and doing the right thing is fundamentally right and works.
Yeah.
And the people that are listening now and be like, not for me, everybody takes advantage of me. You're manipulating. You're doing things that look kind because you want something in return. True kindness, pure kindness is undefeated.
It is.
100%.
And you can take, you know who Danny Trejo is?
No, tell me.
Danny Trejo, actor. He's got the tattoo of the lady, the little señorita on her. He's been in a 200 movie. Anyway,
no, I do not.
Anyway.
No, I don't. I don't consume movies. I don't know.
You've seen this guy, okay? He's probably one of the most recognizable people.
Show me right now, Stefan. Pull it up. Keep going, Tony, while you're talking.
I had him on the podcast.
Okay.
And
get over here.
He said something. You know, he's 75 years old. This guy,
I fucking know this guy.
Everybody knows who he is, okay? So he's been in and out of jail probably like 13, 14 times. Every California penitentiary you can think of.
Yep.
And at age 41, that's when he started doing movies. And he had a big thing in jail where he thought he was going to die. And he turned his life around and he said, for the rest of my life, I'm going to do for people with nothing expecting in return. And that's what he lives by now. And you, the stories that he was telling on just do stuff that's kind for people.
Works.
And it comes back to
Tony,
you.
it always
works. Not that
works.
you're doing it for that, but that's what you do it for.
I'm doing it for, you know how delicious, real quick, admiration feels? I mean, I know you do because you get to taste it. Admiration's the best. And the best form of admiration, as amazing as admiration is for the incredible accomplishments that you've done in the world, admiration for somebody who you did a nice gesture for is...
It's the best. In fact, they've done that where dopamine, they measure those levels in your brain, and actually it is more dopamine gets released when you do something for somebody else than it is when you receive something from somebody else. So that was interesting. All right, I know we got to go here, but I'm going to final questions. What's a business or company that you wish you started?
None.
Okay, great. If you were granted 3 wishes, what would they be?
To have everybody I love live forever, for me to live forever, and to buy the New York Jets and win a fucking Super Bowl.
It's not going to happen. I'm just playing.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And now, Tony, we have a great moment.
For a long time.
I can't wait. I'm going to make a film when I buy and win a Super Bowl at the Jets, and now you're going to be in it because that's going to be my favorite part of everybody who said I can't do it, and it's going to be like, fuck you, I told you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, keep dreaming. If you can make one food healthy, I know you're a food guy.
Oh, that's good.
What would it be? Anything.
This is a great question.
A great bite. I'm talking go crazy or filthy, whatever you want.
Muffins. Muffins have they're so high in calories.
A muffin?
I love muffins. Like corn muffin. Like I love muffins. It's my favorite. Like when I'm traveling, like a coffee with like a corn muffin or a brain. I love fucking muffins.
Well, that's good. A muffin. Who knew? I mean, all the things you could think. Okay, muffins. That's good. That's good. I like it. Okay, person in history that you could living or dead. Person in history you could sit with and have a muffin and
Randy
and some
the
coffee.
Macho Man Savage.
Randy Macho Man Savage.
Randy the Macho Man Savage.
Is he? I'm sorry. Is he passed on? Is he okay?
Randy the Macho Man Savage. It was a very big factor in my childhood. His promotion. I would argue that the way I do content is affected by Richard Pryor and Randy the Macho Man Savage.
Really?
That is what you're actually subtly seeing with my own. But if you look at, like when I promote a conference, when conferences are like, hey, can you make a video saying you're coming so we can run some ads and sell some tickets? Daniel will come over and be like, hey, October 9th in Miami. And I'm like, October 9th in Miami. I'm coming to give the greatest keynote.
October
Yeah,
9th.
it's literally like, if I was like doing a debate, I'd be like, you better watch out, Tony Gonzalez, because I'm going to bring, I literally go into wrestling promotion mode.
Oh man, that's great. Okay, last one type of questions. Let me see. What's your favorite movie and why?
My favorite movie is Empire Strikes Back,
Okay.
Star Wars 2. And the reason is it was when I started feeling American.
Okay.
Being accepted in America was a big thing for me. So the Jets was part of that. We won't go into because we run over, but that was when I started feeling American. Empire Strikes Back caught my attention. I got one action figure for $1.99 for my birthday, and I thought it was too crazy. I can't believe my parents bought me that because we were so poor. And then more importantly, as I got older and really watched all the movies, the story of good versus bad and everything we've been talking about, the fine line between how the Force plays on good or on the dark side is something I think a lot about. And I think it's a classic story and also merchandised and commercial. And that movie means something to me.
Good. All right, final question. What's one area of your life that you'd like to improve in that you're wide open to learning more about?
That's a great question. I think we spoke about it the whole time. I want to continue to feel comfortable in the micro on a one-on-one level with conflict, negativity, and candor. On a one-to-one. On a 1-to-7, I can roll. But on a 1-to-1, I feel like I started naturally, just like I have great things that I started at 100. I think naturally in that issue, I started as a 10. I think that I'm at a 65, and I think I've gone from 30 to 65 in the last 3 years, professionally and personally. But 65 to 100 is a big gap. And I want to continue to get more comfortable with negativity, tough conversations that are tough for the other person. I'm great at talking about my shortcomings. I'm great to sit down and be like, I've been a bad leader. I love that. I love accountability. For the other side, I need to get better.
Gary Vaynerchuk, thanks for coming on the show. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Yeah.
That was really good.
Thank you, bud. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good to see you, bud.
Good to see you. Take care.
1, 2. Come on, fucking work.
Seth!
There we go. All right, we're good.